Shana Tova, as this New Year holiday begins, it is my pleasure to wish you all a good New Year. In Judaism, we don't wish people a joyful New Year, we wish them a good New Year, with the hope that this past year has been just that for you. I'm Rabbi Peter Rubinstein. I'm Director of Jewish Community in the Bronfman Center at the 92nd Street Y in New York City, and I welcome you to my home in the middle of New York City. So that's where I am, and you, of course, are probably anywhere around this world. What are we going to do together? Well, most importantly, we're going to pause. We're going to take this opportunity to ask questions that has been part of the asking of questions by the Jewish people throughout the thousands of years we've been Jews. It's going to be an opportunity for us to remember, to reflect on this past year, both communally and as individuals. It will be a time for us to reflect on the quality of our behavior, how we might have done differently, the amends that we would like to seek, the wrongs that we may have done. And it's also going to be a time for us to realign ourselves, to reconsider our principles and our assumptions and the things we believe and the way we act, and see if the way we in fact do act is in line with the things about which we care, those principles and assumptions that govern our lives. We're going to do this as a very disparate community, but there are certain things that bind us. Firstly, there are certain religious themes and stories, one of which is the traditional story that we tell on Rosh Hashanah. In Hebrew is called the Akedat Yitzchak, the near binding of Isaac. It's a story that tells that God wanted to test Abraham. God says to Abraham, take your son and take him up to Mount Moriah, offer him as a sacrifice. And Abraham accedes. He takes Isaac by the hand. They set off from Mount Moriah. They come to the top of the mountain. And there it takes Isaac's will to be placed upon the wood pyre that's there, and probably some level of force from Abraham. Abraham pushes him down, and suddenly there's a call from heavens. It's the angel as Abraham holds the knife over the chest of his son Isaac. And the angel says, now that we know that you're willing to sacrifice your son, you don't need to do it. There's a ram right behind you, caught in the thicket. That's the sacrifice that you are to offer. Abraham offers a sacrifice, and the angel says a second time, because you were willing to offer your son as a sacrifice, so shall your people be blessed, and through you there will be peace. We'll return to that story later. But among the things that bind us is this common theme, certain religious themes in our traditions. Some of you may be of religious tradition, some of you may not be, and it is so important we acknowledge that in many different ways we are a community. So we sing a song about it. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together.
Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 The sweetness of singing together. Ya la lai 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 lai. Oh, the sweetness of singing together. Ya la lai 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 lai.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was terrific, as always. Your voice and your song always lifts our prayers and our spirits.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. You know, there are other ways that we are connected as a community, not only through religious themes to other people, but very much to the lineage of our own family. Sometimes we forget to consider that we are a bridge between the past and the future. Jews always are aware that it is by virtue of our ancestors that we arrived at this time, everyone making sure that this tradition was passed down to the next. And so we become a bridge between the past and the future, with the hope that the generations after us, whether they be within our own bloodline or because they are friends, that they tell our story and remember us as life goes on, our ripple continues. And there's a way that we as Jews acknowledge that, because we're also connected to other Jews around the world, as all of us as human beings are connected to all humanity. And this prayer suggests that for us. It is our tradition that we call this the Watchword of Our Faith. It's a single verse from the book of Deuteronomy. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." In shorthand, we call it the Shema. And so we sing this together. Rebecca?
So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes and take a breath. And hear the sound of your own voice as you repeat after me. Shema,
Shema
Yisrael,
Yisrael
Adonai,
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu
Adonai,
Adonai
Echad.
Echad.
May we listen and may we love.
But this is also a time for you, each of you, to think about your own lives. What is it that you have special gratitude for this past year? And what is it that may have given you the greatest pain this past year? And among the things for which we should be grateful are those extraordinary people we know who somehow go beyond their measure, who are able to understand intuitively when somebody else needs help, who understand when it's important to put a shoulder, an arm around someone's shoulder, those people who have extended love and kindness to other people, who care for other people. This is also a time for us to commit differently to the ways that we have behaved. For instance, looking back on this past year, have we used technology at times when we perhaps should have put it aside so that we could be fully with the people we love or the people with whom we're working? Or are those times when we may have used our position or language to bully others, to make them feel less a person than they should feel, and so they walk away from us feeling diminished? These are the things that we might want to make account of for ourselves as we look forward to the new year. It's time for us to take off our masks. And the things that we can ask questions about, for instance, let's reflect more fully on the Abraham story and the near sacrifice of Isaac. Why, for instance, did Abraham not say no at the very beginning? Why did he take his child by the hand and lead him without ever telling his wife what was about to happen? This child, who is the child of her old age at age 90, his old age at the age of 100. Why did it take 3 days, and during those 3 days up to the mountain, could he not reconsider his decision? And why, when he finally got up to the mountain, could he not see that ram caught in the thicket behind him, a ram that seemed to say by its very presence, "It's this ram that you should sacrifice, not your son Isaac"? And why is it that he had to force his child upon the altar? You can imagine, with the full weight of his body, he held that knife over the chest of his son, ready to plunge it in, and if not for the call of the angel that told him to stop and said to him, "Because you have kept this act of faith, there shall be blessings for you." And we could legitimately ask, and what would have been the blessing if from the very beginning he said, "No, I am not going to do it. I will not be the first person in the entire story of humanity as inscribed in the Holy Scriptures that was extremist in the service of my faith." And so these are the questions we have to ask about ourselves too. What are the assumptions, the principles, even the religious teachings that we would want to consider differently? What masks would we like to take off to show the world who we really are, perhaps as we are at our very best and the way we were intended to be? And what is it to which we will commit even one thing to do differently? Just one different mode of behavior, one way of thinking how we could treat people better. What is it that we are willing to make a commitment about, to live differently and perhaps more kindly, more gently, and in the best sense, more humanely in the year ahead? Now, we know we can't always do this by ourselves. There are people who with grace put their arms around our shoulders. But we also know that at times we need our faith, our belief. I do, and perhaps you do as well. It is for that reason that every morning I say, Adonai li v'lo ira. In the Hebrew, that means God is with me and I shall not be afraid. Hopefully for each of us, we find those things that give us strength, that support us in the commitments we are now making. And of course, in the Jewish liturgy, there are prayers that give voice to the idea that we need help, that we cannot do it ourselves, and that we would want God as part of our lives. And our tradition is called Avinu Malkeinu. Now, literally translated is Our Father, Our King. There are those who would prefer the translation, Our Sovereign, Our Parent. But however we think of God personally, this is a prayer that acknowledges that we sometimes are in need of strength. And the prayer says, Avinu Malkeinu, be with us, for we are wanting. Forgive us, help us heal, be our strength, and treat us with kindness. Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim, Aseh imanu, Tzedaka v'chesed, Aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed v'choshienu, Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer us. Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious, please answer, and bring us closer to you. Please respond to us with kindness and mercy. Please respond with kindness and mercy, and bring us closer to you. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu.
And now we come to the part of the service for which children, though they may not have sat through any other part of the service, are going to come running in. And all of us, even adults, will sit up with anticipation. It is the blowing of the shofar. It is to remember, some say, that ram that was in the Abraham story. It is the ram's horn that we blow. That ram's horn used to be used to announce holidays from mountaintops. But the ram's horn today is used to awaken us. In fact, there are 3 calls that we would want to note. The tikiyah, a short, steady blast, which says that it helps God move from the throne of strict justice, by which we would all be held accountable, to a throne of mercy. But it's also an opportunity to awaken us, as we would hope we are awakened at this time of year. And then the Shavarim, a set of 3 wavering calls. It is to say that it is the mourning that we have for the wrongdoing we've done and the hope we could do better. And finally, the Teruah, these short staccato blasts that are supposed to finally awaken us out of our moral slumber and to move us to better behavior in the year ahead, finally sealed by the Tekiah Gadola, the high point of every shofar service when the congregation awaits for how long could the Baal Tekiah, the blower of the shofar, hold their breath. It's a wonderful moment. And so, in order to awaken us, to move us differently, to help us atone for our wrongdoing, we listen to these sounds of the shofar.
Tekiah. Shvarim. Teruah. Tekiah Gedolah.
And may the sounds of the shofar we just heard help each of us seal our commitment. But as we place ourselves in time and space, of course, we are well aware of those who are no longer here physically, but so much a part of our lives, for whom we may continue to mourn in our own way. For Jews, we always say a prayer at the end of service. We call it the Cottage Prayer, that helps us remember those people, even though the prayer itself is the praise of God. And so we'll take these moments to remember. Communally, and each of us individually, have in mind those who have made a difference in our own lives, who, though not here physically, are still so present. I remember my parents, Benjamin and Irene. And I'd invite you, no matter where you are, whether at home or in the office or on the street, to take this moment to say their names, even if it's in a whisper to yourself, and to give body to that memory. The last line of the Cottage Prayer is as follows. I will say it a word at a time, so you might repeat after me. Oseh Shalom, Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol, Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May you, O God, grant peace and comfort to all who are in mourning, to all of us, and to all humanity. And let us say together, Amen. And now, as we come to the conclusion of our time together, this amazing experience in which we have been together around the world, moment of pause, I would ask that we all feel blessed. The words that I would use are Adonai oz li'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, which means, may God grant us all strength. May God help us the goodness of our lives. And above all, may God give us all peace to us, to all creation. And so it is that I send you off, or I should say we send each other off, with a blessing for a good new year, with hopes that the year ahead be filled with our intentional kindness, the gentleness of which we are possible, and we would hope greater peace in the days to come. Shana Tova, a good year.